Welcome to episode 30 of Drew's Baseball Crew here on this Saturday morning here. Myself, Drew Skyberg, here to preview the MLB DFS slate for Saturday, June 17th. So in this one, we'll go through all the matchups as we always do. We'll highlight the top plays. We'll try to map out a DFS lineup. We'll talk about stacks, who's the pitcher to go with today, and all that good stuff here on Saturday, June 17th. And again, looking forward to this. Highlight Fantasia Sports as the app to maybe make your DFS lineup today. They have a lot of different options there. One pitcher, two pitcher. You can kind of move around there. Higher, lower, it's called. So you can do over-unders, compete against people. You can do Fantasia picks, which is just your classic higher, lower, and getting payouts based on how many legs you have. But that's what we got. And let's get started here. And going to the baseball, or actually we'll start with the weather. Just talking about what games we might have to avoid with some weather conditions today. So to start, we're just looking through we in terms of precipitation is what I'm looking at, and 2% precipitate. Like some small things that it's like, okay, we're not worried. Some dome stadiums, but then we get to Kansas City, and there's a chance of some rain there. I'm seeing only 28%, so it's small, but just something to monitor there. In Atlanta, we got a 30% chance of rain today. In New York, 33% chance. And then Boston, we get to 77% chance of rain. There's a good chance that Yankee Boston game gets postponed today, actually. So, again, just talking about making our lineups. We got to just this is the part of the year, right? We have to take into account what the weather's looking like. So maybe not a Yankee Red Sox. Red Sox put up 15 runs, I think, yesterday. So unfortunately, won't be able to make some sort of stack there, or just even include that one. But otherwise, weather looks good on the West Coast games. So we're good for the most part. Just a few games, but that main one, Boston Yankees, you probably won't hear me talk about them a lot just because of my prediction. It's going to be postponed. So let's look through some pitchers. Let's look if we got anything here. So Joey Wentz and Jose De Leon are both pitching in the Tiger Twin game. That game's at 110. De Leon's kind of like a long reliever type. I can't imagine him going too long in this one, but not interested in either of these guys, unfortunately. Just numbers aren't there this year, and Statcast is not great. So I want to highlight also Justin Steele. He's coming back. He was in the IL, and he's making his his return and a start today against Baltimore. This one's at Wrigley Field, so highlighting that. He's going to be against Kyle Gibson. We still do not know who's starting for the Toronto Blue Jays today, but they're going against Dane Dunning. Dunning actually has decent numbers against the current Blue Jays roster in career 60 plate appearances against. His average exit velo is 86.7, right? League average 89 or so. And XBA of 248. So Dunning might be a decent guy to just look at today. Braxton Garrett has been solid, and he's got good numbers against this current Nationals roster. XBA of 227 and xWOBA of 261. Then we have Hunter. So I'm gonna go right down to Hunter Green. He's many people have him as the top starting pitcher today, just in terms of the strikeouts and stuff against this Astros lineup. Doesn't hit righties all that well. Alvarez is out, who's the guy who usually carries that load, and Brandon Belock is pitching for the Astros. So I'm looking at Hunter Green for sure. We'll talk more through that. But next up, Griffin Canning versus Mike Mayers. That's Angels Royals there. Canning's got decent numbers and a small sample size against the Royals, so just a few guys he's faced there for his career. But otherwise, not really looking at either of those guys today. Next up here, Adam Wainwright, Kodai Senga. going through both of those matchups. Senga has never faced the Cardinals, but we know with Senga's pitch type, we know about how the Cardinals have struggled this year offensively, and they're not great against right-handed pitching either. So with Senga, it comes out of control. We know that. So if Senga is not walking 2 or 3 guys here in this start, I like a good strikeout volume and hoping for a lot of fantasy points as well. So that's where I'm at there. In Colorado, we're not at Coors Field today, so that helps out. It's actually Bryce Elder Day. So Elder's probably going to be a guy where you're going to see in a lot of people's lineups. Strikeout numbers might not be there, but it's Colorado on the road, so that's kind of what makes it attractive there. Seattle versus so it's Seattle and Chicago White Sox. What we're looking at here is Logan Gilbert has great career numbers against the White Sox. White Sox don't hit righties well either. XP of 234, XWOB at 263. I certainly like Gilbert today. He's been super underrated this year. He's going to be one to monitor. Right, you see the background. You know I'm a Brewers fan. Mitch Keller and Wade Miley are squaring off there. They both have good career numbers against each other's rosters, respectively. So, yeah, Miley has an XBA of 241 against the current Pirates roster. Only a 10% K percentage, so that's not going to do for DFS. But Mitch Keller, on the other hand, XBA of 226, xWOBA of 299, and a K percentage of 26%. So yes, Mitch Keller, if you're looking, he's what I would consider. But again, Brewer fan, not a reason I wouldn't take him. But I also think there's better options today. But Mitch Keller is a pretty good option here on Saturday. So if you want to keep him in mind, there's just been some inconsistency going on with Keller that concerns me. Next up, Blake Snell against Zach Eflin. This is going to be a good one. Eflin's got great numbers against the Padres for his career. He's been dominant this year. XP of 251. And he's been all around pretty good so far. Blake Snell then also had a great start last time out. Definitely love Snell to continue with that momentum. The big one I'm looking at is Bobby Miller making his debut against the Giants. Right? You see he's actually the thumbnail of this video, so that tells you where I'm looking with Miller. Definitely, I love the matchup for Miller today. I think Bobby Miller, Hunter Green are my top favorite 2 pitchers today. Then I'll go with like Zach Eflin and then Logan Gilbert, and then like Mitch Keller and those guys and Senga. So those are like the 5 I'm looking at. This last game is Tommy Henry versus Shane Bieber, and when Bieber for the Guardians, Henry for the Diamondbacks. I'm hoping Bieber can continue momentum after a great start last time out. It's just Bieber again concerns me with the velo and how he's been performing. So, not looking too much at him, but certainly again Miller. I mentioned those 5 or 6 guys. Those are my pitchers I'm looking at. I want to go to some park factors too. Just talking about like for hitters, right? What are we looking at? So Fenway it's actually one of the top parks for runs day, which is funny considering the rain precipitation. So we're not even sure if we're going to have a game there. But otherwise, it's a lot of the other ones are just like middle of the pack, like plus 4%, plus 3%. Nothing too much say with weather, except at Citi Field. There's some concern with some wind going on today. So I guess if you really value weather, right, in kind of who you're picking, Kodai Senga, again with the Cardinals, the struggling Cardinals, definitely looks more attractive. So I'd monitor that. Citi Field, again, no dome, no retractable roof and whatnot. So there's a maybe there, with Senga. But otherwise, weather's not an issue. It's not going to affect too much today in our analysis. So let's look at some history between batters and pitchers. Let's see if anyone's got any sort of dominant numbers, and there are some. So keep that in mind. To start, I just highlighted Zach Eflin, but Juan Soto's gotten the best of him, and he's been hot. 11 for 23, 2 home runs, 5 walks to 5 strikeouts. OPS of over 4 or right around 1,400. So Soto's a guy you can imagine is going to be on some lineups today. the Cubs are a team to monitor today against Kyle Gibson. There are some guys on the team who, have really good numbers for their career against him. So start Yan Gomes is a guy, right? A backup catcher, right? I mean, Chance Gomes, if he starts today, might want to look at him. OPS is over or right around 1,100, and he's got 2 home runs and 34 career plate appearances with a 406 average, right? It's been very good against him for his career. Mookie Betts has gotten the best of Alex Wood so far. 9 for 20, 3 home runs, 2 walks to 3 strikeouts, OPS of over 1,500. That's for Betts. So definitely like him today as well. Brewer legend Omar Narvaez against Adam Wainwright. Good numbers for his career. 375 average OPS over 1,000. He has 1 home run against him. Pretty sure I was at that game. 3 walks, 2 strikeouts. If Narvaez gets the start today, definitely someone to keep in mind. Dansby Swanson then, that other Cub, 8 for 11 with 1 home run, 3 walks to 2 strikeouts against Kyle Gibson. Swanson's definitely a guy in the scouting report they have circled today. I do think Swanson is a good play today, so definitely would consider having him. Next up, Carlos Santana against Wade Miley. 7 for 14, 1 home run, 3 walks to 0 strikeouts. Yeah, I mean, Santana is going to be a guy you want today, against Miley. So I'd consider adding him. We'll see if Rodolfo Castro starts today against Miley. 4 for 7 for him. So he's actually got a pretty big sample size. And then Brian Hayes, 4 for 9 off of him, off of Miley as well. No strikeouts. None of these guys have struck out against Miley so far. Okay, next up, Willie Adames. There we go. We got a Brewer in here. Just pretty simple numbers. 4 for 12. Maybe not much there, but has a couple extra base hits. So just keep that one. Maybe, if you need a guy, Adames. Good matchup, whatnot. Bo Bichette against Dane Dunning. He's a guy who has gotten to Dunning, unlike some of the other Blue Jays here. He has, are you ready for it? 4 for 8. He's 4 for 8 only, but 3 of his hits are home runs. So if you're looking for home runs today, it's, you have to, those home run ones are tough, but just based on matchup, he's got that, right? It's always a mix of matchup and whatnot and weather, just some other factors that go into it. So I'd highlight that. Look, Rowdy Tellez needs to get it going with the Brewers. He's got a home run in 4 career plate appearances against Keller, 0 strikeouts. We know Keller's kind of redesigned himself. He's revamped his sinker, or really developed his sinker. So he's almost a different pitcher. That's why that's sometimes with this historic data that doesn't necessarily work. So with some of these, Brewers, for example, keep that in mind. He's just an example. Of course, some of these other guys have revamped stuff, but a lot of these more like some of these other ones, they just do well against them. There's no other way to put it. Springer has good numbers against Dunning, also. So there's another one to look at, but otherwise, that's really it for these specific matchups. I actually hold on. I got 2 more. I got Tommy Pham against Adam Wainwright. If he's in the lineup, 7 for 16, 2 walks to 0 strikeouts off Wainwright. And then last one looking at is, it was just one to look at. It's Salvador Perez. Just monitoring it, against Griffin Canning. Decent numbers. Maybe you start him, maybe you don't. Just there's also some precipitation. That's kind of why I was iffy on it there. Potentially. Okay, so we looked at that. Now it's kind of like, let's start mapping out our lineup and whatnot. And again, we like to use Ballpark Pal for a lot of this. They give out their top matchups of the day based on weather, and then also just based on what we're looking at with the matchups too. So some top guys, again, I mentioned Rodolfo Castro. The model likes Castro today. It'll be interesting to see if he's in the lineup. Mookie Betts is what I mentioned. Also, one model highlights as well. So just looking through those, But again, I want to go back through, talk about pitchers based on pricing, what you can, how you can kind of navigate it. So I mentioned Hunter Green, I mentioned Bobby Miller as my top two. If one of those guys is inflated pricing wherever you're playing, I got some backups for you. Don't worry. I recommend looking what Logan Gilbert's priced at. I recommend looking at what Senga is, Kodai Senga's priced at. I'm gonna imagine Eflin's gonna be pricey today. Also Snell is too, but like those are also some other ones. Those are kind of like my fallback options. You should be able to get two. Like if you need two, you should be able to get two of those, like 5 or 6 I mentioned. Also, Braxton Garrett was the other fallback. So just keeping those in mind for you, and then looking like where are we stacking. So I like to look at Vegas, look at the over unders. This has worked very well for us so far this year. Where do they think the runs are being scored? Unfortunately, it didn't work really well last week with the Coors slate, but they like the over unders. They like runs being scored in the Angels Royals game. They like runs being scored in the Rockies Braves as well. So certainly want to highlight some of these because some of the guys don't have matchup history against each other. So when my next step usually through this is let's look through these matchups. So we know Pasquantino's out for the year, unfortunately, but with the Royals, you're getting some good value there. Nick Prado looks like he's going to be slotted in the leadoff spot. So looking at Prado with the Royals at first base could be some decent value there. The model, right? Ballpark Pal likes some of the, and I'll mention some of those Angels with that stack. Jared Walsh could be a nice component to that. We'll see if Andrew Velazquez gets a lineup, but the model likes his spot today. And then also Matt Tice with the Angels as well. So there are some guys to include in the lineups. Some budget guys also, which is some good bet. That's going to be some nice value. And then also just with the Rockies and the Braves, looking at both of that, looking at that game. And a guy who I'm looking at who's perfect for a game like this, right? They're facing a righty, and Connor Siebold. Eddie Rosario is like Corey Dickerson, right? Corey Dickerson's a guy. I think about him with Colorado, especially. Remember him? He's a guy who's going to slot out, or he's going to play against righties. He's going to sit against lefties. But when he plays against righties, he's dominant. He does very well. So Eddie Rosario is a guy I'm looking at, and I think Rosario is going to be one you're going to want in your lineup. Nolan Jones has been hot also. So, pivoting from what I said, looking at some stacks, or if you want to just double up on some games, perfect situation here with Rosario, and then also looking over at Nolan Jones, some of those guys. But if you just want to pick some handpicked guys from different games, that's where my suggestions go based on matchups, like Mookie Betts, for example, very good numbers for his career. And then, of course, some of the other guys I mentioned as well who have the career numbers, like Carlos Santana, for example. And then, going just through that list. But that's where I'm at with my lineup here. I'll give a few more guys here before we wrap it up that I had to monitor today. And going through it, right, depending, Mike Moustakas is a guy for Colorado. I didn't even mention him yet, who numbers kind of match up nicely. And then also, right, against Elder, not many career player appearances, but it just works out in terms of the matchup, the over-under, right? I mean, the weather's there's favorable. A lot of conditions line up for a guy like Mike Moustakas today, so definitely keep him in mind for your lineup. But otherwise, that's kind of where I'm at here with the lineup today. I think Colorado, Atlanta, get a couple guys from there, get a couple guys from Kansas City Angels, and then I think handpicking those guys based on matchup and then also some favorability. So again, I'm going to highlight them one more time here. So, right, guys I mentioned Rosario kind of counts in the other game, but Mookie Betts, for example, and then Yan Gomes, Juan Soto, Omar Narvaez, Swanson, Pham, and I think you got yourself a winning lineup. So good luck to everyone today. hope this helps, of course. And I will definitely be posting my lineup as well, right? And let's win DFS today. How about that? So that's going to wrap it up here for myself, Drew Skyberg. I'll be back tomorrow with an episode of Drew's Sports Crew. Have yourself a great weekend. Thank you all for listening to another episode of Drew's Sports Crew, the perfect podcast for you.